listening to 99.1 WQRT-LP, and welcome to Radio Free Book Club for December 2024. I'm Ken Honeywell. I'm a writer and a reader from Indianapolis, and today we're talking about another one of the most anticipated novels of the year. It's the fourth novel from Rachel Kushner. It's called Creation Lake. Creation Lake is narrated by Sadie Smith, not her real name. She is a clandestine operative for what appear to be mostly right-wing clients attempting to implicate leftist environmentalists in acts of eco-terrorism. Her current assignment involves a French commune suspected of sabotaging efforts to create large reservoirs that would promote growing corn, just a monocrop, destroying traditional French agricultural practices. And the book is informed by this mysterious mentor of the commune, the reclusive, cave-dwelling Bruno Lacombe. Kushner's first novel, 2008's Telex from Cuba, was a finalist for the National Book Award. Her second, The Flamethrowers, was published to Luminous Reviews, was also a National Book Award finalist in 2013. The Mars Room, published in 2018, was shortlisted for the Booker Prize. And the plaudits have continued for Creation Lake, which was shortlisted for the Booker Prize, longlisted for the National Book Award, named among the New York Times Best Books of the Year. Although much more so than her previous novels, there has been a big divide among critics, some of whom have lambasted the novel to the point of wondering why she even wrote it. We will attempt to answer that question. But first, let's reveal who we are, beginning with the person to my immediate left. Hello, person to my immediate left.
Hello, I'm Craig Von Deylen, father, stepfather, architect, man about town, world builder in my own mind.
Yes, absolutely. Craig is well known for adding one or two things to the list of who he is every time he's there, and I admire that. Yes. Hello, person straight across from me.
Hello, Ken. I'm Sarah Layden, and I'm an English professor at Indiana University, Indianapolis, formerly known as IUPUI, and I'm also a writer. And my most recent book is Imagine Your Life Like This.
Yeah, it's an excellent book of short stories, and I would recommend it to anyone looking for a holiday gift.
Or, thank you.
Depending on when you listen to this, a birthday gift or just a book to give somebody to read.
Arbor Day is a lovely occasion.
Absolutely. And yeah, we have had a couple of times, or at least once on the show before, we had a mother and daughter. We had Barb Shoup and Kate Shoup on the show at the same time. But we have never had a married couple on the show. And so now I would like for the other person here to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laurel Judkins. In addition to being Craig's wife, I am a non-practicing lawyer. I have a communications practice.
That's some people's favorite kind of lawyer.
Yeah, I know. It's my favorite right now. I do keep my license because I suffered for that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give it up. But I have actually never participated in a book club or a podcast.
Wow.
So,
awesome. So
this
you are
is
a rookie all the way around.
On many fronts.
Wow.
But really happy to be here. I'm the daughter of both a librarian and an English teacher. And so
awesome combo.
This feels like it should be up my alley. So
yeah.
I'm really excited for this first time.
Well, we are very happy to have you here. And we've sat Sarah in between Craig and Laurel just in case, anything breaks out.
Yeah. And we haven't really discussed the book at all. So, this is,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We're keeping it real for the podcast.
All right. Well, let's do that. But just before we do that, I want to just let everyone know there will be spoilers. If Creation Lake is on your reading list, you should probably come back and listen to us at another time, which you can do. You can find this and all the episodes of Radio Free Book Club just about anywhere you stream podcasts. And if you subscribe to our Radio Free Book Club Substack, you'll get notes and links to other good stuff. We're working on it. It's a work in progress, but it's coming along. So, yeah, so I said a little bit about the book, but Sarah, if you were going to, do a little bit of a cover blurb for this book, what would you say it's about?
Oh, wow. That is a great question. I I think you did a great job, first of all, with
Thank you.
the way that you introduced the book and set it up. And I would maybe add that I think it's about the quest to understand your identity by understanding origins.
Okay.
And it's told through a narrator who gives us very little of her real identity.
Yeah.
And that is her quest, is to understand herself, even though she's not willing to either look at herself or tell us who herself is.
Yeah. Well, we are going to do a little bit of talking about Sadie Smith. But let's talk first a little bit about Rachel Kushner. Who has read her previous novels? Are anyone a Rachel Kushner fan?
I know very little of her work.
I'm familiar with it. I mean,
Yeah.
I've heard of the Flamethrowers, obviously, but
Yeah.
this was the first time I really dug into one of her books.
Yeah. Craig, you had never read Rachel Kushner.
No, but I know her voice because I listened to this book.
Oh, yeah.
I
Oh.
did a read and listen to Hybridization.
Yeah, I listened to a little bit of it
Yeah.
too. Yeah, I read the Flamethrowers and I didn't love it. Everybody seemed to love the Flamethrowers. I loved it a little less, but I really liked the Mars Room. And so I was really looking forward to this book. I had really high hopes for
Mm-hmm.
Creation Lake. So, yeah.
I've only read a little bit of her nonfiction, some of her essays that have been in magazines and things. And I didn't even realize at the time necessarily that this is the same person who wrote this book or that book. But, you tie it together later. And
Yeah.
she wrote about, interestingly, because I think this is part of the Flamethrowers, which I have not yet read, but I have a copy of, so intend to read. But she wrote a nonfiction piece that I'm trying to think of the title of the book it went into. I've lost it. It'll
Yeah.
come back to me. But it was about riding a motorcycle in a race
Yeah.
in Mexico. Do you
Yeah.
know this
Yeah.
story?
I don't know the
Okay.
piece, but that
Yeah.
was the Flamethrowers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just start talking about the book. What worked? What didn't work? Were there parts of it that you liked, didn't like, didn't get? Craig?
Well, I mean, what was immediately so I had just previously to reading this, I read *Sapiens* by Yuval Noah Harari,
Yeah.
and it became apparent to me that Miss Kushner must have just read that book or read that book as well, because of her getting into the details about Neanderthals and the history of like how humans have gone from being hunter gatherers to farmers and so forth. So it seemed very like apparent that she was also interested in that subject. I just kept waiting and looking for something that had anything to do with creation in a lake. I was hoping that maybe that the group that she was following, that I can't remember what they called themselves,
The Molinars.
Molinars, were like had a lab somewhere where they were trying to resurrect Neanderthals that then would go out and kill people or something. I don't know. It just didn't get to that point, so I really never felt like it fulfilled any kind of promise to me that I was hoping to secure.
Yeah, let me give at least a partial answer to that question. The only time I saw those words together in the book were when Bruno was talking about, he said, for 9/10 of human time on Earth, people went underground. Their symbolic world was formed in part by their activities in caves, by modalities and visions that darkness promised. And it goes on a little bit, but the paragraph ends saying, what would be the purpose of life if life were reduced to a handful of armed pessimists hoarding canned food and fearing each other? In a bunker, you cannot hear the human community in the earth, the deep cistern of voices, the lake of our creation.
That was it. I guess I missed it.
As you would. I mean, I admit to reading it twice, so
Yeah.
I certainly missed it the first time through. Yeah, Laurel, how about you?
I think I might have had inaccurate expectations as to what I was getting into. For better for worse, it was kind of positioned and marketed as a spy novel. And while there were elements of that, I think I expected something a little more fast paced. I don't mind kind of a slower meditative read. In order to do that, I think you need a book that really brings everything together very succinctly.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like in ways that we'll probably talk, at least for me, it missed the mark a little bit on being able to just really pull together a slower, more thoughtful, drawn out read.
Yeah, I agree with that, and we should talk about that more. Sarah, what was your impression of the book?
Very similar. I think that about midway through, I started reading reviews, which I don't always do
Yeah.
mid-read, but I was
Mhm.
sort of like, I need some framing.
Like, is anybody else seeing
Yeah,
it?
right. Like, what's happening? Ron Charles, please tell me what to think. I love Ron Charles. He is the Washington Post book reviewer. But it really took a long time to reach the boiling point, which to me was the fair. When, the mission comes together and, at the same time, Sadie's life is kind of falling apart. Her cover seems to have been blown.
Mm-hmm.
She also doesn't seem particularly great at her work. There are many posts throughout the novel where we learn that people are onto her.
Yeah.
And that she is perhaps not as covert as she might think, which is interesting. But it's also like she's so withholding from the
Mm-hmm.
reader that this narrator doesn't tell us very much about what she thinks or feels. And to me, like we get this moment at the very end where she is reading one of Bruno's emails, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where she has this epiphanic moment. And I'm like, okay, so this is about your quest to understand you. It's not about all of these other things.
Yeah.
But the rest of the novel doesn't build in that way.
Mm-hmm.
So in some ways, that moment doesn't feel as, I don't know, maybe revelatory as it might in a different kind of book.
Yeah.
Well, there was something that you pointed out about, her cover being blown. It was interesting to me because Kushner wrote her as being a very noticeable character,
Yeah.
an attractive American in
Yeah.
a rural French commune.
Yeah, right.
Like, how could she be covert? And so sometimes the things that I was confused about in the book, I thought sometimes the characters were a little 2D and flat a little bit, and I wonder, in the end, was that all intentional, right? Like, as a part of like the overall theme and story, like, so that's just something that came up for me a few times. But these things that I was confused about in the book, perhaps they were intentional, and I'm curious to find out maybe what I missed, right?
Yeah. I don't know what you missed. I thought some of the side stories were.
I'm trying to, like, I had challenges with this book, and I've been thinking about, how do I think about some more positive things and things that actually made me think a little bit more, like, maybe I'm just missing it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I thought some of the side stories were interesting, like the story
Yes.
with the lice in the German helmet was a great
yes,
story.
I agree.
I thought the story about the Kago people was really interesting.
Yeah.
This is all Bruno stuff.
Right.
I mean, it all seemed like more interesting than, like, on the first page, we know she's going to meet Pascal, but she doesn't meet him for like 150 pages.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't even get to the commune till like halfway through the book.
Mm-hmm.
It's so slow. So little actually happens in just like the ongoing narrative of the book.
Even in the end, so little happens.
Right.
What's his name? The Platon dies by being crushed by logs.
Yeah.
She had nothing to do with that other than
It was
creating
Frank.
the riot.
Yes. Right.
Like,
Frank
it
and
was
his motorbike.
counter of what you would expect from a spy novel.
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a little bit. I don't mind, slow spy novels. Like some Graham Greene novels are really good, and not that much happens, but they're really tense. Was this a spy novel?
I mean, she was a spy, technically.
Kinda.
And she's in a novel.
She was a private spy in a novel, yes, but she seemed overly infatuated with herself and not her project or what she was supposed to be doing.
Yeah, she really didn't care about anything she was doing.
Yeah.
It's like she was kind of soulless.
Yeah. And she did a lot of wandering. Like, is the French word, it's flaneur, right? Like the
Right.
person that
Right.
wanders and observes. And I
Right.
think that, like, it's gendered too, right? Is it flaneuse for a woman, maybe? I can't remember. But that's how so much of the novel feels, is that she's
Yeah.
sort of walking through life in this very passive way, even though she has a mission. And, it's interesting you point out that, like, she doesn't meet Pascal until quite late or get to the commune until late. I think it was, I remember because I looked down, 227 or something like that, when we learn that she's in this manor, in this house, with all of this equipment and with weapons and with all this
Yeah.
other stuff. I'm like, why did we not know that sooner? Because then you carry that information with you throughout the whole book. You know the potential of what she might do. Maybe
Yeah.
I missed it. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right, because she goes
Okay.
through and describes what guns she
Yes.
has and the knife she carries, but it is very late in the book when she gets into that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
Sarah, you also pointed out before we started here that this was also billed as a comedy. Was it funny?
Yeah, I found nothing about this funny. I don't do, yeah, not at all.
I didn't really either.
No, I didn't either. I think that there were a couple moments where I wondered if the author was kind of playing with us and winking a little
Yeah.
bit, especially the part where she, through Bruno, is telling us about coincidence and plot. And
Yeah.
then we get this sequence with the logs and with young Frank, who's, someone she's been observing and maybe even kind of enviously because
Hmm.
he has a child. And
Right.
like that he's the one who's able to set things in motion and she cannot. So, that fact that it's set up by talking about coincidence and plot through
Hmm.
Bruno
Hmm.
made me wonder if the author was sort of like having a go with the reader, just like, wink, wink.
Yeah.
But
Here's the
sometimes I
plot.
feel like readers don't like that, because
Right.
you want to trust the author, you want to trust what they're telling you, and then if you, the reader, and maybe that's the point of this book, that we're supposed to be the ones being played to a certain extent, but it doesn't feel great as a reader, and
Yeah.
so I don't know.
Yeah. I didn't find it really funny. I think she's a clever writer. I mean, on a sentence level, she's an interesting stylist, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Definitely.
and
Definitely.
it's some of it's clever, but I mean, like remember she had a 6 pack of beer that she'd forgotten to put in the refrigerator, and she, sat down to pour herself a hot one, and it's not that funny,
Yeah.
But it's,
you know,
it's a little
but it's
funny.
clever, right?
Yeah.
Do you think it's meant to be a satire in some ways? Like, is
I
it
don't
satiric?
know.
And
I
if
don't
so, what
know.
is it satirizing?
Yeah. That's a good
I'm not
question.
sure.
Yeah. The other thing that I thought was at least interesting was that Pascal was a follower of Guy Debord, and Bruno had known Guy Debord as much as anyone could know him, according to Sadie. Is that somebody that any of you knew about or know about what his philosophy was?
No.
Do not.
So he was a French neo-Marxist like philosopher in the 60s, and his big book was called The Society of the Spectacle. And let me see if I can find it. Of course, I had it queued up. Um, and this is actually pretty good. This is the AI overview of what that is. The Society of the Spectacle, written by Guy Debord, critiques modern consumer culture by arguing that contemporary society has become dominated by images and appearances, where the spectacle, encompassing advertising, media, and consumerism, has replaced genuine human interaction and experience, effectively turning life into a passive consumption of illusions, creating a sense of alienation and a false reality where people are more concerned about how they appear than with their actual lives. Essentially, the spectacle functions as a tool of capitalist control, pacifying the masses through a constant stream of images and distractions. That was 1967,
Hmm.
and it's interesting to also think about what Debord said you should do in response to that, which was basically have real experiences art and kind of like, I guess I would say, like culture jamming, like use the elements of the spectacle against the spectacle if you can.
Hmm.
And so that was, he was Pascal was a follower of Debord, apparently. I'm not sure he was doing any of that.
Right.
Didn't sound like it. He was in a cave
Well,
writing emails.
well, no, that,
That's
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right.
Lacombe.
That's Macomb.
yeah.
Pascal. Yeah. Okay. He was making movies, so.
I mean, it's interesting that Debord, like Pascal, they were like bourgeois Parisians out, playing farmer,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and Bruno was kind of the real deal.
Right. And then they discount him at the end.
Yeah.
They decide that he's gone mad in his cave and he's not somebody to be listened to. So, I mean, some of it too, maybe like the satire and the critique, if it is there, is about posers.
Yeah.
Like people
Oh, yeah.
who are like out setting what is it, like a tractor on fire? Like that was the initial thing
Yeah.
that she's out there to look at or think about. But what are they really doing? Like, what change are they really enacting other than just sort of being a nuisance?
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of at one point, Sadie says that charisma comes from the need of others to believe special people exist. So, that kind of does seem to be kind of what some of those characters were about. Certainly, she was saying that about Lucien and Pascal as being those kinds of people.
Right. And then Lucien winds up being with, what's the other woman's name?
Amelie.
Amelie, of course.
Right.
How could I forget?
Yeah.
After the movie, right?
Yeah.
But he winds up being with Amelie. And so, like, even the things where she thinks that she is the one with the upper hand, and Sadie, and she thinks that she's the one controlling the story.
Yeah.
She's out of control.
Right. And honest, and none of it mattered at the end. None of it mattered to the execution of her duties, right? That was
Right.
just an
Yeah.
accident. None of her smarts, none of her wiles, none of any of that mattered at all.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting. So let's talk about Sadie. Did we like her? Was she interesting?
No.
She liked herself.
I just feel like it was a missed opportunity. I think she could have been such a rich, deep character, and whether it was intentional or not, I felt like she was kept in, shallow and a little two-dimensional. And I would have liked to see more depth, more who she was and less what she had done and what had happened to her.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I have very little access to her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know her actions to some degree, but I don't feel like I know her well enough to like or dislike her because I don't know who she is.
Yeah, and she certainly doesn't seem to have much good to say about anybody else.
Right.
She
Right.
is the smartest person in the room always,
Right.
even though she's the only one who knows it.
Yeah. And her relationships, if they exist at all, are very transactional. I mean, I get that that's her role in this book, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a good word for it.
Yeah.
Craig, you were looking for something.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out the guy's name that she had the hookup with at the lake.
Renee.
Renee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seemed like a bizarre distraction for somebody that was supposed to be incredibly professional, and
Yeah.
really put her in a bad place. And then at one point, she also described her. I'm going to use a term that I don't really think is appropriate, but boob job, and how good it was. It's like,
Yeah.
it was
why?
expensive.
Why is she talking about this? Or her face that she was attractive, but just not attractive enough to be a movie star.
Yeah.
I kind of get that as like a character type of thing, but they could have gone a lot further and built the character a lot better than, or she could have built the character a lot better than that.
Yeah.
It seemed kind of the antithesis of what I would have expected from a professional person in espionage.
Yeah. I
At least
can't
one that
disagree.
had survived for a while.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, You know what I thought about a couple of times while I was reading this? I don't know if you've ever read Kate Atkinson.
I love Kate Atkinson.
Oh, she's so great. And the Jackson Brody novels.
Have you read the new one?
No. Wait, yes, I have. Is it, it's got Sky in the title.
No,
Dark Sky?
no. There was one just out this fall.
Oh, wow. No, I haven't read it.
Death at the Sign of the Rook.
Ooh, good
Yep.
rec.
Yep.
Okay, I know what I'm asking for Christmas.
Yes, ma'am.
But you know, like he's sort of, he's the kind of detective where he's muddling through. He has had a lot of failures in life. I mean, it's very comedic too in some ways.
Yes.
And like darkly comedic. And I was expecting that a little bit, I think, because of the billing. But the marketing of a book is different than what a book might really be. You know, like that's to sell it. And then maybe that's why some of the reviews were divisive, was because it did not live up to whatever the marketing of this book was.
Yeah, maybe.
But you know, like one thing with Sadie that I found myself really interested in was how interested she was in Bruno. Because
Yeah.
I found him to be the most compelling character in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she did too.
Who we never met.
And who we
Yeah.
never met. And
Or we might have met on the road that one time.
maybe.
Maybe.
Well,
Maybe. But she went so far as to like go partly into the cave.
Yeah.
You know, like he was inspiring her to change. And I think that like that's the pivotal moment, or one of the pivotal moments in the book, that where a character is willing to seek out change instead of to just passively let things happen to them. And so that's where I started to see more of her. But I thought it was very telling that we don't get any backstory, unless I missed it, about her family.
No, none.
No, yeah, there's
Her
nothing
story,
about
her backstory picks up with dropping out of a PhD program, and the chin line beard
The
guy,
kid and
the
Nancy.
kid and Nancy,
The boy
right.
and Nancy.
So we don't know about her parents. We don't know about her family
Yeah.
life or anything like that. And she does seem to be seeking something paternal from Bruno, like some advice, some wisdom, some, tell me who I am,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was interesting. And like the fact that the lice and the helmet and that story of Bruno's, I found myself really latching onto that too, because it was so vivid. And I felt so much sympathy for this boy whose family was killed in a concentration camp.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I also get those ocular migraines. So,
Oh no.
Yeah.
Well, his story was the most interesting part of the book, and her reading those emails was the most interesting part of the book. The rest of it just seemed very disjointed, and
Yeah.
like why, when she was infiltrating this group, she then get the assignment to kill this underfunctionary of the French government, who was also happened to be Spanish? I mean, it just didn't make any sense to me, and got really confusing in
Right.
the long run.
So here's I think all we know for sure about her, or
Mm.
what she says anyway. She's talking about her salt. Do you remember her talking about her salt as being
Yes.
like her core? That's kind of like the core of what a human is their salt. And she says, human salt, like this salt, is everlasting. Mine it, use it, and it will not deplete. In my own salt, my own core, this is what I knew. Life goes on a while, then it ends. There is no fairness. Bad people are honored and good ones are punished. The reverse is also true. Good people are honored and bad people are punished, and some will call this grace or the hand of God instead of luck. But deep down, even if they lack the courage to admit it, inside each person, they know that the world is lawless and chaotic and random. That's about as much as she says about herself in the whole, what she says is her core.
Mm.
So were we rooting for her? Laurel, were you rooting for her? Did you want her to accomplish what she was there to do?
Yes, I still actually did. Selfishly, because I kind of wanted something to happen, you know.
Yeah.
So
Understandable.
Yeah.
So yes, I kept waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and I was rooting for her to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of was too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were there other characters that stood out? Other characters that we liked? Was anyone likable besides maybe Bruno?
Bruno, yeah.
Yeah, Bruno seemed likable.
The American that worked with in the shop that couldn't speak any French and who she gave the gun to supposedly
Right.
kill him.
Birdmore.
Birdmore. He was kind of interesting. Like I'm like Laurel. I was hoping that there would be some big thing that happened, and it was really anticlimactic in the long run. And now I'm starting to think. I didn't realize. I mean, until today, I didn't realize it was supposed. Or when I got this email, I didn't realize it was supposed to be comedic. And I'm thinking like Pink Panther kind of comedic. Like maybe if I'd read this again and thought of it like being like the Pink Panther, maybe it would have been more funny. I don't
Craig.
know. I don't see where the comedy is at all.
Yeah, I certainly didn't get it, and I did read it twice, and I listened to part of it the second time through, and I just didn't think it was funny.
Yeah.
I also wanted her to maybe have some redemption from her sort of failed previous job in the U.S. where she's sued or convicted of entrapment.
Right.
Like oh, Sadie, get it right this time. Whether that was warranted or not. I think there was also an opportunity for some redemption for her, and whether it seems like maybe she's leaving the business. Maybe that's the redemption, and she just gets to kind of like hang out in Spain, on the beach or whatever. But I thought that there could have been an opportunity for some more redemption. It just never happened.
Yeah,
That's a good point. I think that, she's paranoid too. So you expect something to come from that. The fact that she is, nervous about being identified as Amy in all of these documents.
well, and she confronted lemon incest,
Right.
the guy with the Chrysler Sebring,
Right.
who did not belong there.
That's not a real song, is it?
It is.
It is?
I'm sure it is.
Oh my God. Okay.
That
Yeah.
couple that was hanging around
Yes.
a lot.
Mao 1 and Mao
Oh,
2.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
were kind of interesting.
yeah. I was a little intrigued by. I was kind of intrigued by them, like that they had picked up from wherever they were, and were also aspiring followers of Bruno, and
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. That it maybe had tentacles outside of the commune that we weren't aware of, and wasn't really a huge part of the story.
Yeah, they seem kind of tragic
Yeah,
because they
did.
were like older
Yeah.
too. They were like
Yeah.
70.
Still
Right.
believing, still hanging on to
Yeah.
whatever ideals that
Yeah.
they have had.
But it
Squatting.
outlived their usefulness.
Right.
Yeah.
They're just squatting in
Yeah.
the nettles waiting
Yeah.
for someone to hire them. It's very
Right.
sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do we think about the commune? I mean, pretty much they gave the women's work to the women, didn't they?
Disappointing, but not surprising, right? I mean, I think that
Right.
like these structures, people just kind of fall into roles. It's
It was
then-
interesting they
yeah.
made an excuse for it too. Like Pascal just made an excuse and said, when you go back to the land like this is just what happens.
right. And it's better. It's better for people to be together than
Yeah.
in their own homes doing this work. And there's some credence to that, but I don't know. Why don't you ask people what roles they would like to have?
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about how. So I'm not sure. Like, do we feel like she actually accomplished, or her mission was accomplished? I guess they were kind of breaking up the Molinards at the end, although they didn't have anything to do with Paul Platon's death. But I
Right.
guess they did have that.
They started the riot.
They had the milk trucks.
The milk trucks, yes.
Right.
Yes.
The motorcycle was part of it as well. And wasn't there a motorcycle guy?
Well, yeah, Frank.
Yes.
Kid.
The
who
kid.
had a kid.
The
Right.
kid with the kid.
Right.
Right.
That was the other weird divergence, is the whole, like, the interviewing the Italian 9-year-old who.
Yeah, it was the movie she was watching.
Yeah, that was really strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much of that stuff. I mean, you have lots of Bruno stuff, and then you've got this other stuff, and it's so discursive that it just really felt to me like it interrupted just like the flow of the story. But Bruno was still more interesting than the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if she could tie all that together into one kind of thing that happened in the end, it would have been a really successful book. But there was no tying it all together. It just kind of haphazardly ended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is disjointed. I mean, I think in some ways her mission is successful because it buys her freedom. You know,
Yeah.
she's able to make choices because she has money, even though it didn't work out the way she had planned it.
She
It
still got
worked.
paid.
She got paid.
Yeah.
She still
Yeah,
got
that's
paid.
true.
He was dead.
But I think, I mean, maybe one way we could think about it too, because I find it hard to believe. I mean, novels take years to write. So,
Yeah.
like, maybe some things are accidental, but I can't imagine that everything is, you know? So, what she pays attention to matters. And the things that she picks up on and the things that she thinks about matter. So, she is looking at um, kids having sex with adults. She's looking at Bruno as, you know, somebody who might guide her, but at a very safe distance. She's looking at Bruno's lost daughter. That
Yeah.
comes up over and over
Mhm.
again.
Tracks.
Mhm.
So, yeah. And so we don't get resolution about any of those things. We don't know how all of that connects, but I think it matters in the sense that, like, this is what she's paying attention to.
What do you think Le Babies meant? All the stickers in her house,
Oh yeah, from the kids that were the people that stayed there before.
apparently.
I think she wants to have a child and will not.
Now,
Like,
she mentions that she does not want it, that she will not. She did. You're right though.
Yeah.
Maybe she did want
She
to.
right. The only way she was going to
Yeah.
have a child is if she rescued one
She
from a
rescued
dumpster.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's like a fantasy that she has, and it's the
Yes.
only way she can allow herself to think about it.
Yeah.
Is if I were to rescue a baby that needed my help, then I would have a child. And you know, by the end, okay, I think this is got to put my glasses back on 400 and 401. This is about Bruno. He had called them his friends. Bruno, they were not your friends. His children, they don't deserve to be your children, Bruno.
Hmm.
Mm.
I think that that's really interesting too. And then she thinks about the babies, the stickers, and she lets that thought go and says they're the only children I will ever have. And to me, that's different than saying I don't want children.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's interesting. Good point.
So we're right there at the end. What did we think of the ending? Was it earned? Does it make sense?
She's going to disappear again.
Yeah.
I've retired to Priest Valley, which is a lie.
An intersection.
Right.
course.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it makes sense that she retires.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why she did though. You don't see
Yeah.
it. I don't think. Sarah, do you see it?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I think that it all happens very quickly at the end, but I think we are meant to follow her train of thought where, um, you know, Bruno thinks that he needs to look within. He needs to live in a cave. He needs to isolate himself. And then he realizes that he lost his bearings. He needs to actually be looking at the sky, looking at the stars. And he directs the people reading the email to do this as well. She does that. And she has a moment where she realizes she needs to know who she really is.
Yeah, I guess for me that moment happened off camera.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't see that because he kind of comes and says in that last email, was it better before? I honestly can't say, he wrote. In looking back, what I really wanted to know was how we navigate with the knowledge we have. What future do we imagine for our present? As opposed to trying to go back to do something some old way that may or may not have been good anyway.
Right. I mean, I think for her, too, she gives up drinking.
She gives up drinking,
And
and she was
that's-
drinking a lot.
She was drinking
yeah.
a lot. Two
Warm stuff, too,
40s,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Um,
240s that she found out were malt liquor
yes.
and not beer.
Oh, God. Awful. Yeah. And I mean, for her, that's the old way that was no longer working, that was no longer serving her. You could read it that way, too. That, you know, she came to a realization that she had to evolve, she had to change, just like the Neanderthals.
Yeah. Yeah. All goes back to the cave.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it does.
Yeah.
Craig, what do you think? What'd you think of the ending?
Anticlimactic, and just I lost interest. I was hoping for some big thing, like a gunfight, perhaps, or something, and there really wasn't anything. And then she retires, and I don't think she had nearly enough money to retire, so she's going to have to go back to work of some sort. So
Yeah,
let's
she
hope
wasn't
it's
in a hurry to do it, though. She
Yeah.
wasn't going to Malta. Why would you not go to Malta?
Oh,
I
I
mean,
would love to go to Malta.
that just
Yeah, why
seemed like
not?
something you should do regardless of the job.
Or even the job in the UK. I mean, something,
Right.
Why
Right.
not?
And she had all those weapons.
She did. She
Yeah.
had.
What'd she
yeah,
do with all
she
her
had-
weaponry?
Wow, what a
Well, she
really
probably
good
kept.
question.
Well, she gave one gun away, so
That's
it's
true.
gone.
That's true.
He did not give it back.
No.
And he didn't
No.
use it for the intended purposes. So.
No, and he never intended to.
No, it's like he played her, and that guy wasn't very bright.
That's
I
exactly
mean, he
right.
couldn't
Right.
even pick up any French, and he'd lived there for like 3 years or something. like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Right.
Birdmore.
Yeah. I don't know. It just wasn't. I
Classic.
didn't. I did not enjoy this book. I mean, I enjoyed. I enjoyed reading the beginning of it and the stuff about and what Bruno was talking about and the whole tie-in to Sapiens and all that, but it just never got to anything that was really great. And I was hoping that there would be something really great, and it just never got there.
Yeah. So, which anticipates my next question. Would you recommend this to our listening audience?
No, I'm sorry, I wouldn't. It's interesting because at one point I asked Laurel about it because she had read it. You read it even before I did. Just you got it.
On
and
my
you read
own.
it. Yeah, on your
For
own.
the book club.
And I think you mentioned I struggled through it or suffered through it or something.
Well,
like
it was,
that.
and I
Whoa.
learned a new acronym, the DNF, almost did not finish.
Yeah.
I was close.
Yeah.
Because I didn't read it for purposes of this book club, and so, yeah. But I
Did not
tried,
s-
once I found out that it was part of this, I tried to keep my,
Yeah, you didn't say anything
commentary
more,
to-
like you,
I
but
just
did
said,
not
just
set
read
it up
just
well.
read
but
it,
regardless,
just read it,
yeah.
and
Well,
form your own opinions on
You
it.
know, I should say that Craig is almost always invited when we're doing science fiction shows.
Oh,
Yeah.
So,
Is that your jam?
I'm jamming on the
right.
French
Yeah.
science.
So
Yeah.
I thought,
Really
you know
enjoy
what?
it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put Craig in a science fiction ghetto. I'm going to ask him
Yeah, I
to
appreciate
read.
If it's going to be
some, like,
something
literary
spies,
novel.
yeah, spy is
Yeah.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't. I'm a science fiction fact checker.
Oh,
So,
wow.
Yeah, he
It's got
is.
to be really good.
Yeah. We appreciate that.
Very well
You
done.
didn't look up anything about the Cago people, did you, on this?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Her gun descriptions were accurate. That's fine.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
All right.
Sarah, what do you think? Would you recommend it?
I would, and I'll tell you why. Because I think it's important to read a wide variety of books that are told in different ways and take on different structures and styles, and to sometimes be baffled by them. Because then, like me, you can seek out some reviews and see, oh, other people were also baffled by some of these choices, or
Yeah.
other people really loved some of these choices. And to me, that's valuable when I like to, think about publishing and think about teaching my students and telling them, about the wide variety of books that are out there in the world.
Yeah.
So,
Is there a book, Sarah, that was got rapturous reviews that you just don't get?
That's a good question. I have to think about that for a
Yeah,
sec.
you don't
What
have to
about
answer
you?
that right.
Do you have one?
The one I can think of is A Little Life, which I hated.
Oh, I never read it because
my
so many
gosh.
people said they hated it.
I hated it.
I liked it, but it was very difficult.
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suffered through that one.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
By the way, can I just real quickly say Sarah's answer to the question was exactly what I expect of English literature. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just plow through that.
Kids,
Camus and keep
kids,
moving,
just finish it.
whatever.
Yeah. Just finish it. Yeah. Laurel, how about you?
My instinct is to say no, but I think with the right framing, like I think if I was going to recommend it to someone, I would provide a little bit of context. And I guess the one thing I would say is that despite I didn't enjoy the process of reading this book, I still find myself thinking about it.
Right.
And
right.
I don't know if it's because I am resentful or if it's because it actually gave me some really interesting things to think about. Jury's still out on that, but I'm still thinking about it.
Mhm.
So is that the hallmark of a great novel? I don't know.
Yeah. I agree with you, Laurel. I'm not sure I loved it, but I thought about it a lot after I read it, and It wasn't a chore to read again, actually. I thought it was at least interesting. I would recommend it to some people, I think,
Yeah.
not to others.
Yeah.
But yeah, some people, I think it's a challenging, and at least the Bruno stuff is interesting enough to to read.
Yeah, and the Neanderthals too. I was really interested in.
Yeah, it was a pretty good follow-up to Sapiens. In a weird sort of way.
Yeah.
I did come back and read the first few pages after I finished the book because I was like, I need to refresh my mind on these characters and their situations. And this is something that I came across on page 10. This is Bruno again through his emails. Says, now, more than a decade into the 21st, it is time to reform consciousness, Bruno said, not through isms, not with dogma, but by summoning the most mystical secrets we have kept from ourselves, those concerning our past.
Yeah.
And I think that's what this whole book is about. But we don't get the past of Sadie.
Yeah. But I mean, also, he comes to the conclusion that what he's most interested in is what do we know and what do we do with it?
Yeah.
Right. And I guess he's mining the past for that. But it's all about doing something. So, yeah,
But
interesting.
none of that's funny.
Now that's funny.
Yeah, that is, but none of that was. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I don't get that it's a comedy.
Well, I didn't. I think we agree on that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about if anyone has any recommendations, or I asked also if you had a favorite book from this year. Either one would be awesome. Laurel, you got something?
Yeah, a couple books that I really enjoyed actually had some similarities. I probably like a lot of people that read it. I really enjoyed All Fours by Miranda July.
Oh, you took mine.
Well, and then I just finished reading Colored Television by Danzy Senna.
Yeah.
And they're both from the perspective of women in their mid to late 40s, like myself, who are having a bit of a WTF moment in their life. And they're both creatives and they both navigate that moment, that chapter in their life very differently. But I thought they were both incredibly well written. They were very enjoyable to read. And so those were probably my top two.
Yeah, I think this is maybe the third show in a row where someone mentioned the Miranda July. Yeah, both on my list. Haven't read either one, but looking forward to both of them. Sarah, how about you?
I also was going to say All Fours by Miranda July. It's a great book too.
I'm gonna have to read that one.
Yeah, if you want to pick it for a book club,
we've got it,
or a conversation. I think it's a good discussion.
Yeah,
book
there's a lot going on.
All right.
People have
talk about.
strong opinions about that
Okay.
book. My book club discussed it a couple months ago, and we had a good chat. Not all in agreement about it either. Another book I really enjoyed, I don't know if it came out this year or last, but it's called The Wren by Anne Enright. She's an Irish writer.
Man, so many great Irish novels in the last couple of years, right?
Yes.
What's it about?
It is about young people in Ireland, in the country, and also in Dublin. And it's just really, really close character studies and about these colliding worlds. And it's about old Ireland and new Ireland and the ways that people navigate relationships and gender roles. And things that, people all over the world, but particularly in Ireland, seem to be struggling with and in moments of crisis with.
Wow, that sounds great.
Yeah, I liked it a lot.
Yeah, awesome. Craig?
This year, the book I enjoyed the most was A Short History of Nearly Everything by Bill Bryson. I thought that was really good. It's been around for a while. It's a great book. And then beyond that, in the nonfiction world, the best book, and it keeps coming back to my brain, is Chain Gang All Stars.
Oh,
I thought I look back and think about that one. I'm like, man, that would be.
I love Chain Gang All Stars.
It'd be a great movie too. Like,
It would be a great miniseries.
Yeah.
If not for the fact that it's satirizing our.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I know.
Yeah, it's like
it seems like
our
exactly
society's on the way down, but it's a great book.
Yeah, so interesting. Yeah, that was really good. And so I read a lot of good books this year. We talked about a lot of them on the show, including Percival Everett's James, which was the last show Sarah was on.
Yeah.
Well, he's married to Dan Zisena,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and so I'm going to read that one next because I'm so curious. They both had these really outstanding books in one
Yeah.
year, and so what does that creative process look like?
Yeah, no
For
kidding.
a couple to be going through that at the same
Yeah.
time. So,
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah,
there's-
it's a really good book, and we had a really
Yes.
good discussion
yeah.
of it, and it just won the National Book Award. So
Yes.
um,
This was longlisted, Creation Lake, right?
it
Wasn't it on
was.
the long list?
Yeah,
Shocking.
and and a couple of others that landed on the Times list at the end of the year. Tommy Orange's Wandering Stars,
Oh.
which I didn't love, but
Hmm.
it was an interesting read. Long Island Compromise, which we also talked about, which I liked and not everyone on the show liked at all. Um, and it was really funny, regardless of whether you thought it was a good book or not. It's really funny. Um, but the two I've had the hardest time getting out of my head are Sally Rooney's Intermezzo, which I adored, um, and Martyr by Kava Akbar, which I thought was fantastic. It was maybe my favorite book of the year, but we did all those on the show.
Yeah.
So I also want to mention one more that we didn't talk about, but that I thought was really good. It was a historical fantasy novel by Yangtze Chu called The Fox Wife. It's set in 1908 in China and Japan, and concerns this woman who's actually a fox who can turn into a woman. And she's like on a quest to find the person who murdered her child.
Wow.
It's really strange and really beautiful and just really unlike anything that I've ever read. It's just kind of it's a folk tale come to life. It was really beautiful, The Fox Wife. Um,
Good
and it's
recs.
beautiful. It's kind of a beautiful winter novel.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
One thing I've actually been reflecting on, and it's interesting that you said winter novel because this past summer I was visiting my mom in Charleston, South Carolina, and there's this really nice bookstore called Buxton Books. And my mom said, "Hey, why don't you come to this reading?" An author was doing a tour, and her name is Annabelle Monahan. She writes romantic comedies, beach reads,
Mhm.
which isn't usually what I am drawn towards. But we went to see her speak, and she was so delightful and bright and witty. And so I picked up her book, I read it, and to do one of those beach reads really well is actually pretty difficult.
It
Mhm.
is.
And
Mhm.
I gained this new respect for the beach read, and I spend a lot of time on the beach in Michigan City. And so this past summer, I took a more seasonal approach to my reading, and I
Nice.
dove into the beach read genre and really
Wow.
enjoyed it. And so I'm thinking about doing that in, this next year, like doing the more serious, meatier novels in the fall,
Yeah.
winter, and then doing the more lighthearted, just easy breezy
What a
type of
great
reading
plan.
for summer.
Yeah.
I read one this summer. It was called The Wedding People, and
Oh, okay.
I can't remember who the author was, but it was a really good beach read.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it?
Emily Henry, did she write
I was
that?
going to suggest Emily Henry for beach
Yeah,
reads,
she is good.
but the wedding people. I'm thinking of the woman who owns the bookstore in Brooklyn who wrote. Oh, why can't I think of her name? Emma Straub. Is that who it
Yeah,
was?
I think it might be.
I don't know. Let's see if
That
I can
sounds
find it
right.
real quick.
Hi, Emma Straub, if you're listening.
Yes.
I do love Emily Henry.
Yeah,
Uh,
I really
Yeah,
enjoyed that too.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No, her name was Alison Esbach.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
okay.
I didn't know that
Yeah.
person at all.
Hello,
Yeah.
Okay.
Allison.
I don't know her either, but it was fun read.
Yeah, great.
Can I mention one more book
You may.
too? Because as we were talking about all fours earlier, I thought about another novel that's about menopause and perimenopause. And it's really short and it's not as intense as all fours. So if you're looking, I mean, you could read it on
Yeah,
a beach
right, yeah.
potentially. But it's called Sandwich by Catherine
Oh,
Newman.
I've heard that's really good.
It's excellent. Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, it's definitely on the list.
And I've heard her first novel is even better. I bought it, but I haven't read it yet.
All right. Well, we have got so many good
Yeah,
recommendations
I'm
at the end of the
excited.
show.
I know I've been furiously jotting them down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, with that in mind, that is it for us this month. You can find notes for this and all our shows at our new Radio Free Book Club Substack. We hope you'll consider subscribing. Remember, we're always interested in what you think about the book and the show. For Sarah Layden, Craig Von Deylen, Laurel Judkins, and all the members of Radio Free Book Club, I'm Ken Honeywell. Thanks for listening. And join us next month when we'll be talking about the brand new winner of this year's Booker Prize, Orbital by Samantha Harvey. We We hope you'll listen. Till then, read a book.